Hey guys, Andy Howe here with the Columbus Way. Today I am doing a business highlight, another edition of our business highlights here with Kelli Flannagan. Kelli Flannagan, James? Kelli Flannagan.
Just Flannagan.
Just Flannagan.
Yeah, haven't changed it yet.
Haven't changed it yet. Okay. Well, today we're going to be talking about autism and kind of a free-form conversation. You tell us a little bit about what you do with kids. I know you work with kids, and we'll keep it, very general as far as where you work and things like that. But just tell us what you do in general.
So I started my career working as an interpreter, and I got my master's of special education while I was working. I got my teaching license as well to be an intervention specialist, which is the new term for special education teacher. So I have worked with students in various ages, but for the past 2 years, I've been primarily working with students with autism with various degrees of severity.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's heard that word, like the spectrum, right?
Yes.
You're on the spectrum, and
right.
so there's fully, functioning, maybe you couldn't even tell, to very
severe,
disabled, right?
Yeah.
Almost disabled or debilitating. And I know there are schools here in Columbus that focus, and that's their specialty, is serving that autistic community. Mm-hmm. And it seems like, I don't know if there's more of a prevalence of cases today, or we're just better at diagnosing it. I mean, how would you?
I think that I think it's definitely easier to diagnose, and then also I think more girls are getting diagnosed. Before
Really?
It used to be the idea that autism was just a boy's disease, and it's because the way that it presents in boys can be a lot more obvious. As far as diagnosing it, whereas if a girl when she's little is shy, antisocial, quiet, those are all things that stereotypically you want in a girl, and that are conditioned into them as being quiet, shy, things like that. And it's not until there are the severe developmental delays that it's like, oh, maybe there's something else going on.
Right. So, when I was growing up, probably when you were growing up too, there weren't these schools around.
No.
It seems like that's a relatively new specialty school.
Yeah. The only one I ever knew of, actually my cousin has autism, and he's more on the severe end of the spectrum. And there's a school in Chillicothe called the Pioneer School that's run by the Ross County Board of DD. And they serve multiple disabilities, but he went there for having a developmental disability of autism. So that was the only one that I ever knew of.
I'm just coming from a total place of ignorance almost. How do people get diagnosed in the first place?
So it's a developmental disability, and so they certain things might come up. So for example, if a child, they can be developing completely normally and on schedule with everything, and then suddenly they might start to regress. They might start saying fewer words. They might start showing signs of stimming, which is a self-regulating habit that they do. So it can be things like the hand flapping, saying things over and over, seeking sensory input to help regulate themselves, things like that. One thing that I've seen as very common is toys, lining things up, and lining up toys, organizing things, and
colored, the green ones here, rather.
And then also having special interests that they are extremely interested in. But I love that they have special interests, because I use that in my classroom to get them more interested in things like math and reading. So they're, wanting to learn about those things because their special interest is incorporated.
You're saying that, and I'm thinking in some ways, as long as it's not too severe, it could almost be an advantage for people. If somebody really wants to be a veterinarian, that's what they're interested in.
Yeah.
They're probably going to be a really excellent.
Yeah, and there's a great example of that is a woman named Temple Grandin, Dr. Temple Grandin, actually. She has a wonderful book that I read during my during my master's degree, and she talked about her experience growing up with autism, and she actually has developed a lot of the cattle chutes for commercial farming.
Okay.
And that was her special interest, was learning about the way that to make a more humane cattle chute.
Okay.
And it became her career, and she has her
Wow.
doctorate and is extremely successful and well known in the field. So
Well, it makes me think probably throughout history these individuals have been present, whether it's
Oh, yeah.
figuring out, hey, we need clean water, so we're going to do this canal system, or this, get the sanitary water, unsanitary water rather away, or whatever problem there is. Somebody
Right.
steps up and takes the role that's super interested.
yeah.
So I know I'm a parent, and so as a parent, I some of our friends and associates, people, they may have kids or on the spectrum. Just in general, how can parents best assist their children in getting them the help they need if they start to show some of these characteristics?
So one of the places that I have been more involved with is Nationwide Children's, as far as knowing parents having case managers for their children from Nationwide Children's, and I've only heard good things from the parents about Nationwide Children's and the whole process. A student that I worked with was diagnosed at 3 and has been working on, they're called programs, to help him gain the skills that he needs.
Like an individual education program? Type thing?
Well, a program is run typically by an applied behavioral specialist, an applied behavioral analyst specialist, or a board certified behavioral analyst.
Okay.
And so those are in-home therapies that they do to learn things like, answering like who, what, where, when, why questions, or how do I do my laundry, how do I make a bag of popcorn, and all of these tasks, how do I wash my hands, how do I go to the bathroom, all of these tasks are broken down into what's called a task analysis, where it's every single step is broken down. So for washing hands, it would be broken down as far as turn on the water, put your hands under the water for 10 seconds, rub your hands together, get 1 pump of soap, rub your hands together, wash off the soap, turn off the water.
Like teaching habits.
Exactly. And so it's very explicit in how it's taught, so that the student or the children can learn it, the steps explicitly, and then it's taught over, so they learn it at home. Well, what about when we're out at a restaurant or when you're at school? Learning to generalize that across multiple different environments is super important too. So
I was thinking maybe my first, probably people of my, I'm a little older than you, but people of my similar age, my first exposure to what I think was probably autism was the movie Rainman.
Yeah.
Was Dustin Hoffman, was that more of I don't even know the difference between like an Asperger's or like a...
So Asperger's has been taken away from the definition.
Oh, it's not.
Yeah, it is no
okay.
longer part of the definition. It's a spectrum now.
Okay.
And so
Okay.
they just go off of the spectrum,
So-
unless they changed it back from my last training.
Okay, but he would have been an individual.
He would have
been
he would have been on the spectrum, but on the less severe side probably, since he was able to interact socially, and I think the reason that people found him so extraordinary was because of his gifts and things like that.
Sure.
And so I think it's something that I find extraordinary is that my students also have gifts like this. So I've had a student in the past who he watched these specific videos, and they would go over synonyms of words, and he was able to write down 6 words and then write about 15 synonyms from memory
Wow.
of each word and use them correctly and pronounce them correctly.
Wow.
Yeah, and I mean,
How old was he?
and he was 11,
Yeah.
11,
Yeah,
and using
awesome.
words like melancholy and
Right.
things like that. So
Right.
it was great. Yeah. So they
Wow.
all have their own special talents. I mean, whether it be extreme focus on things, it can be in. I've had another student excellent in math. I mean, incredible in math, above grade level in math, and other students who are great at art, amazing at art. ones that I've thought you could be like they could be an engineer. And the one thing that I do want to say is that have you ever heard of a speech generating device?
I think I have.
Okay.
Yeah,
So a speech generating device, it's a part of a category called an alternative augmented communication system, an AAC.
Okay.
So AACs can be things like picture exchange cards, things like that, or that's the low tech version, or they can get super high tech with like iPads, or they're also called accents that are like a dedicated device. They're extremely expensive. Like an accent is probably about $7,000.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah, so they're extremely expensive, but I have seen students just gain so much independence for ones who had different communication styles.
Sure.
That's another thing is I don't say nonverbal. I say that they have a different communication style.
Yeah, you don't want to stigmatize.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
And I think there is a stigma around thinking, oh, they're not speaking, so they must not have the cognitive ability of someone who is speaking, which is totally not true. So, it's just important to remember that when kids are using these AACs and speech generating devices that, they're extremely tough to use.
So saying the Columbus Way, we got about 3,000 people in the group. Bridgeway Academy, local school here, right where I used to live in Old North, specializes in helping children on the spectrum get the tools and education they need so they can be most successful in the world. So my family and I will pledge $500 towards Amazon Smile and purchasing items off their wish list there at Bridgeway. But also, you're mentioning we can do, like, make a selection that part of your each purchase goes towards a cause. So with about 3,000 people in our group now, like that would be a pretty easy thing to do, for us all to do and affect change on other people without necessarily. You can always give more, but I know maybe not everybody's in that circumstance, but chances are a lot of people are buying stuff on Amazon anyway.
And I want to say it's 5%.
That which is great.
Good.
So is Amazon paying that then?
It's Amazon.
Okay.
So like I said, I think it's smile.amazon.com, and then you choose your organization. And the thing is, you can do Bridgeway Academy for Autism Awareness Month, and then choose. I think that there are lots of other great places that you can choose from too.
Sure.
So just
Awesome.
to continue to give back, and it doesn't take anything extra from you. It's from just your purchase.
Right.
So.
Awesome. Do you have anything to add? Anything that
I don't know. I think that I think one of the big things that I want to add is that if you see a child having a quote-unquote meltdown, just try to be supportive and don't stare.
okay. Don't bring extra attention.
Don't bring extra attention to it.
Sure.
Sometimes the function of that behavior is attention, and they need as little attention as possible during that, and just also privacy for that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Cool. Well, Kelly, thanks for taking time out of your day.
Of course.
On your day off, right? President's Day here. A beautiful day in Columbus. What are you up to the rest of the day?
I am getting coffee with a friend after this, so I'll be on my second cup, which is great. And then I'm going to be cleaning my house and doing lesson planning.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thanks for taking the time. And thanks all you guys for watching the latest installment of Business Highlights. It's like a personal highlight maybe. But if you guys have anybody you want me to be sure to talk to, reach out, let me know. Again, thanks for watching. See ya.